This video is about Ivy, the hero of the night.
Let's go! New York is my city!
The gargoyle didn't know what was happening when it sprang to life, just that a big human and a small human were being hurt, and so the gargoyle leapt to action, sending the attackers fleeing in horror. The small human said thank you and asked the gargoyle's name. The gargoyle didn't have one, and so the small human said,
I'm gonna call you Ivy.
The gargoyle, being covered in ivy at the time, thought it was a bit obvious, but decided to go along with it for the small human's sake. The humans asked if Ivy would come home with them so they could show their appreciation, and so Ivy walked with them. That night she learned much. The family were called the Arroyos. The little one, Sophia. Mofongo is what they called the plate of deliciousness. But most importantly, she learned that the people attacking them were called the Mendoza Syndicate, and they were hurting people. Nice people like the Arroyos. 18 years had passed since the day the Arroyos took Ivy home, and during that time, she made it her mission to dismantle the Mendoza Syndicate and free Spanish Harlem from its grasp. However, the thing about dedicating your life to a single pursuit for nearly 2 decades is that you don't really know what to do once you achieve it. And for the first time in her life, Ivy is prepared to venture outside of Spanish Harlem and see what the world has to offer beyond vigilante justice. Ivy is actually a true hero in her lore, okay? She literally was a gargoyle, like any of the gargoyles that you will see right here, like this one, and somehow a soul got into it in the moment of crisis, a human next to this gargoyle, and Ivy made a decision in that moment to save that human, and we would not know who this Ivy person is if that didn't happen. So that is kind of fire if we're just talking about lore. So her first skill is called Kudzu Bomb. Kudzu Bomb summon a patch of choking vines that damages and slows the enemies in its radius. So it's a dot in an area effect. It does a lot of good spirit damage, and it slows the enemies. It's pretty basic. This is kind of the bread and butter of Ivy. It's the reason why Ivy is so strong right now. This Kudzu Bomb ability does a ton of damage, and it's spammable. It's at max level. It has 2 charges, but you can get rapid recharge. They'll have 4 charges of this Kudzu Bomb, and they're able to spam it in team fights. And in the gameplay I got earlier with Ivy, I didn't realize how strong this ability is, but it also is just a great way to get a bunch of assists. Her second ability is Watcher's Covenant. Gain bonuses and automatically reconnect with a nearby ally to share them. Healing is replicated among all those connected. So it does require a line of sight, but this is straight up a support ability. If you've ever played Dota 2, then this would remind you a bit of like Wisp or Marcy. Ivy gets bullet lifesteal during this as well, and she's sharing it with her ally. So this is what makes Ivy really, really dangerous in lane as a support. It kind of gives her and her partner some sustain. In minutes of engagements going on, maybe like a long fight, especially in the early stages of the laning phase, this ability can really come in handy to save your partner that might be going a little bit too crazy or taking a bit too much damage. So pretty strong ability, actually, deceptively so. Ivy's third ability is Stone Form. Now she goes back into gargoyle form for a second, making herself invulnerable to damage. Also, upon landing, she stuns in an area, so this can stun multiple enemies. Also, during that time when she's invulnerable, she gains a percentage of her max health. At max level, this is 20% of her max health. This is literally a ridiculous ability. It has a stun. It's an AoE stun. It also makes Ivy invincible, so you get cooldown reduction items. This Stone Form cooldown is ridiculous, especially for what it does. It saves Ivy in a pinch. It's a very, very good move. It can also be used aggressively from high up to just land a stun. Ivy's last skill is Airdrop, and I have a lot to say about this ability. Take flight with an ally or a bomb. Drop your ally or bomb to cause a large explosion that causes movement slow. Ivy and ally gain bullet shield when the flying ends. While lifted, your allies gain bullet resist but cannot attack and deal negative 50% damage. Airdrop has faster caster time when targeting an ally. This is a broken ability. Okay, let me just show you what it does immediately. You cast on yourself. So it picks up this bomb. And this is how fast Ivy can go. And this is how high Ivy can go up. Just across the whole map. And then she drops the bomb. It does a bunch of damage. I wouldn't say it does a whole lot of damage, but it does do quite a bit of damage for what it is. The other part of this skill is you can pick up an ally and save them, right? You can fly back to your base. Or you can use this to set up for a crazy play if you're, you know, in communication with your ally, right? Because it'll drop them, it drops them, it gives its damage, right? It spreads the poison. And then the ally can start using their abilities, right, once they get dropped. I've also seen plays of like Ivy picking up Bebop during his ult, but I don't know how that plays into the 50% less damage. So that's just something you want to consider when you're trying plays like that. There was a very, very old broken strat, it may still be a thing, where Ivy would pick up Haze, and Haze would pop her ult, and it would be like an attack helicopter. It was very, very broken. I don't know if that is still the thing or not. Ivy is a top tier character right now in the game. Whether you are playing solo and you just want to queue up by yourself and just play someone that is strong, that has lots of damage potential, ways to heal themselves, invulnerability, ability to just fly away if there's a problem. She can literally just fly away from the engagement. She can also fly the urn. I didn't do it properly, but there's a way, I guess, to fly the actual urn. But if, let's say you want to play her more like coordinated, you want to communicate with your team, you have an Abrams on your team, and you want to use your ult to set up with the Abrams ult, then that makes Ivy also just top tier, just in teams. So this is a character that if people aren't already banning her, they will be banning her and picking her all the time in probably every team comp. Now, ways to counter Ivy. There's a few different ways to counter Ivy. Ivy is squish. She does have escape. She does have the stone form, which can make her pretty difficult to deal with. But outside of that, she is pretty squish. Another thing too is that her damage can be underwhelming by herself, especially early on. If she doesn't have farm or she's not really ahead, her damage isn't that great. You know, it's very slow, it's not very bursty. Her gun is pretty good, but the fire rate is really fast, and the clip runs out really quickly. So those things make it difficult for her to really prosper by herself in lane. She really does work better with a partner where she can kind of synergize. Also, if you are deciding to solo queue, I think it can almost feel like griefing if you pick up your teammates and they don't know that that's what you're going to do. Even if you're trying to save them, I think if you're not communicating with your teammates and you decide to use your ult, they might report you for griefing. So that's another thing too you got to consider if you decide to pick up this hero. You can get some spirit resist. A lot of her damage nowadays is just spirit because of Kudzu Bomb. She spams it. She does have quite a bit of damage, don't get me wrong, but like at the end of the day, it's slow and it's obvious. It's a very obvious AoE. Even if it's a big AoE, it's obvious that it exists, so you can just move out of it. You don't have to stand in it. There's nothing forcing you to stay, which means that her damage really is dependent on everyone clumping together and playing like noobs. So if you know that she's going to throw a Kudzu Bomb, you can just avoid it. You just walk right out of her damage. She doesn't have anything to keep you there. Things like knockdown also hurt her, right? Because if she tries to fly up and fly away, you just knock her down, and then that will keep her from going anywhere. They build some CC, use some CC on her, just walk out of her damage because she doesn't have ways to really keep you in it, and gang up on her. She's not really good against like multiple heroes.